Hola a todos, mi nombre es Larilu, bienvenidos un día más a mi canal. Hoy vamos a tener una entrevista otra vez, pero va a ser un poco distinta porque la vamos a tener en inglés para que también nuestra invitada esté más cómoda y se pueda comunicar con nosotros de la mejor forma posible. Igual no se preocupen, que vamos a dejar con Abdiel, que es mi editor, esposo, el que le hicimos la entrevista la vez anterior. Voy a dejar por acá arriba la tarjeta para que puedan ver el video después de ver este video. Bueno, vamos a introducir a nuestra invitada especial de hoy. Ella es Liliya, es mi compañera de trabajo y claramente amiga mía. Así que bueno, vamos a empezar. We are going to get straight to it. Now in English, don't worry, we have subtitles now. So Liliya, thank you so much for being here, basically. Thank you so much for agreeing on having this interview with me.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yay. So the thing is, a little bit of an introduction, a little bit more about her, is that she's from Israel, but she's been living in many other countries. And she doesn't hold the European passport. So it's kind of a similar situation as Latin American people normally have when living in Europe. So I thought her story was going to be a very interesting story to talk about. So Liliya, tell us a little bit more about you, about your background in general, please.
So I'm Liliya, as Lana mentioned. I was born in Russia and I moved to Israel when I was about 4. Basically grew my whole life there, and towards after I finished more or less my studies, I decided at the moment, more or less at the same time that the corona started, that I really wanted to go to work abroad because there were more options there, at least for what I was studying at the moment, which was animation, 3D animation. And I didn't know how to even start with it because most companies will hesitate to hire you unless you have a visa to work in the country that you want to apply to. So, and not a lot of them will sponsor you. So the only place, at least that I saw that was doing it legally, because there are a lot of illegal options, was actually in Greece. And that's how I moved to Athens. That was one of the craziest decisions I've made. No, I'm not sure if it's the most craziest, but it was the most that it took a while for me to actually commit to, because I had to really decide, okay, I'm actually doing it. I will apply. I will do all the paperwork. I think the bureaucracy.
Yeah, bureaucracy.
Burocracia. La bureaucracy was the one that actually made me hesitate a lot, because you need to make appointments, you need to provide papers, you need to provide your police report that you're not a criminal. So that was it took a while. It took I think at least a month. And the moment, because the corona was right at that moment just hitting and everything was closing down, so honestly I needed to wait all the time for that. So that's how I moved to Athens. Finally, and I stayed there for almost 2 years. Towards the last, I would say, 6 months of my stay there, it was becoming really difficult to stay because the work environment was really toxic, and a lot of people were leaving because of unfairness in the work. It became very exhausting just to go there, and I was working in customer service basically, so it was mostly 8 hours of hearing people complain or scream at you, or so it's yeah. It takes a while, and I was never used to it because I think it was my first job as an actual customer service that answered phones, which I absolutely hated.
Live customer service. I know, that's the worst. I used to work in customer service as well as when I first arrived here, and I started that job, and just a little bit before we started, they decided not to have live customer service. Mm-hmm. So it was everything on email or chats.
Oh God, I wish.
But yeah, and you had to call people sometimes, and that was an issue because people were mad.
At least the first week, you're gonna get used to it, but just sitting there and waiting for a call to enter, that's absolutely, yeah. It's a nightmare. I hated that thing, and it's 8 hours and I'm just counting the hour down. And towards, I would say, like a couple months before I left. So a friend of mine actually found a job in Poland, and he was like, "Okay, so my company is looking. Are you free? Are you interested in moving to a different company?" And like, if they provide the sponsorship, by all means, yes. So HR got in contact with me, and we had the interview on the phone. Then I think I had one live, and they they accepted me pretty quickly. And then it was like, please provide again this amount of papers. So it was like. I think it was my high school diploma. It was my letter of recommendation from my current job, like several things. I think my birth certificate, something like that. Like there was a long list. First send it by email, and then they asked me to provide the original document. So that needed to be sent by regular mail. Okay. So I would send it, and then she will give me the reply like, "Hi, yes, this is not the original. Please send me the original." So I had to send it like 3 times, like one document, which I think the HR needed to provide, but because it was still Corona, HR was not working.
No.
So it needed to be signed by hand by a personal with a signature. Anyway, it was like 3 times I sent it. They did not return the money afterwards, but never mind. So
they always say they would, but they never returned the money.
It was so much euros to send. Like it was so weird. It was like I would send it like every time I send it, it was a different cost for some reason. Like I sent it once and it was like 30 euros, and I sent it like a second and it was 14 euros, and the third time it was like 6 euros. I'm like, what is happening here? I have no idea. And basically, okay, so then they're like, okay, so we need to wait for the answer from the government or wherever. They send it to the city to get a work permission that I'm allowed to work. The moment that I received the confirmation, I quit my job. And I needed to book the appointment for the embassy, to the Polish embassy, for them to agree for me to move here.
So you were in Greece?
I was in Greece.
Okay.
So the moment I got the work permission, I quit. It was, I think I gave them like maybe 2 weeks. And then I moved to Israel. I think on the same week I booked an appointment to the embassy, but it was like only like 30 days later. So I needed to wait for like a month at least. So I was basically sitting, not doing much. And I went there. They were a bit looking at me weirdly because they needed the health insurance for all that, for the whole time that I'm gonna stay in Poland. The thing is that
didn't they provide it?
That's the thing. They should provide it the moment I will arrive in Poland, but before that I need to provide it for myself, basically.
Okay.
So like you can say for example, if you're staying for 3 months, then you need the health insurance for 3 months. But because I was planning to stay a bit longer, so I needed the permission. It was like, I think I took it for like 91 days. And she was looking at me weirdly like, okay, but like you can sit for 3 months, like no problem, like legally in Poland. Like why do you need permission from the embassy? So I'm coming, but my work permission is still like in process, whatever it was, I don't remember much. But finally she agreed, so I managed to get that, and then I immediately booked a plane. So that was, so I booked a plane, came here. I booked a place for like at least a week, just for me to find an apartment. Mm-hmm. I think that was the most, that I still have like, I'm always afraid that I'm coming to a new place, I don't have where to live.
Yeah.
But luckily it was, I managed to find retail agency.
Mm-hmm.
Retail agency? Okay.
Like, like an agency.
It's not agency. It's not a retail. What do you call it?
It's a
real estate. Yes, that one. Yeah. So a real estate agency who was like, okay, so we have this apartment. I'm like, I just entered, I saw it. It looked pretty, it looked clean. It had a washing machine, and the fridge and a bed. I'm like, yes. Okay, I'm signing now, right now. Just give me the contract. Just let me. And then I started like the next month at work.
So you waited for all the paperwork in Israel?
Yeah. Well, the most annoying one was from the police. Yeah. Because like you need to apply it online, and then they send it by the regular mail. and then you need to keep calling the embassy to check that they actually received it, and it takes a while because regular mail.
Yeah, of course.
So that was I think the only document that actually like took a while, and the rest were like print or whatever. I already had it ready because I had I kept my copies from the one that I did for Athens.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty similar, just to provide it.
Good. So you applied. This is like a small recap. Your friend was here. He told you, would you like to come to Poland? It's going to be like a legal thing that they're going to provide you with a work permit, blah, blah, blah. So you said yes. You applied being in Greece.
Already in Greece, yes.
To the job. They liked your profile, but they needed you to do some paperwork in the Polish embassy in Israel. So you went from Greece to Israel, you did the paperwork there, and then you came here 1 month before starting.
I provided the paperwork. I got the work permit.
Uh-huh.
So I needed the paperwork for the work permit.
Yeah.
And then from the work permit, I needed the permission from the embassy to stay more than 3 months. They needed to approve that I'll legally stay more than 3 months, and I could not cross the borders or anything unless I'm returning to Israel. So it was coming. They needed to approve that I'm staying more than 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then the moment I arrived here, thankfully that company, they had a very great service of helping you regarding your...
Mm-hmm. The Carta Pobytu is a residence permit that allows you to work as well.
Yeah, so basically what they do is they will contact you separately. They're like, hi, can you please provide these documents, which you're sending, again, the copies. And then they're booking the appointment for you. They're telling you when to come. You're coming there. There's a representative of the one who are helping you, and they basically just take you by the hand, walk you inside, and they just talk in Polish to the person in front. And they're like, so these are all the documents, please. The only thing I need to do was sign and smile and not say a word. That's it.
That's very useful.
Yeah. She was like, here's this document, and the lady was going 1, 2, 3. So it was done in 10 minutes. And then Liliya, please sign here, please sign here, please sign here. I'm like, done. That's it. We will let you know when your Carta Pobytu is ready. I'm like, thank you so much. I was ready to invite her for a coffee. It was so quick.
Lovely. So next question. Wait, I forgot. Oh, yes. I remember. So what were your biggest cultural shocks as soon as you arrived here and after a few months as well?
Well, language is usually the first time. I found out, it took a while, but I found out I got very shy because I was afraid to communicate with the people. Because you're coming there and you can ask in English and they will just blink at you. I actually feel apologetic that I'm not speaking the language yet. So it was okay, I need at least basic hello, good morning, whatever, and then pray that someone is actually speaking and is willing to actually communicate back. So it was funny because it's you would assume the person in front will not speak to you, and then they're apparently their English is absolutely perfect. And then there were times that you would speak because you would assume that they will actually answer, and they're just back in Polish, and it doesn't help. You repeat yourself, and I still don't understand, so might as well.
Anyways, you're doing great on language. I've seen you ordering stuff in Polish. It's damn, she's got it.
I am practicing.
She really got it.
I am trying to practice in every opportunity that I have.
Good. That's the right mindset.
At least let me order coffee like a normal person.
Poproszę kawa. I just stay there.
Poproszę cappuccino. Na miejscu.
And then regarding apart from the language, what other kind of cultural shock? Did you have any other kind of cultural shock?
Honestly, the first time I came here, I was I got here and it was a very big city. Well, for me, it looked like a very big city. And it was really funny because first of all, it was so quiet, which I was not used to. It is, right? Yeah. I woke up at I would say 7, 8, more or less in the morning. The next day I arrived from the airport, and I was just walking in the city just to get to know her. It was the silence was weird. And it was like nobody's walking, nobody's talking, like not no dogs, no cats, no birds. Now they have a lot of pigeons, but you know. And I was walking. It's like the city feels familiar, but not at the same time. And I couldn't like point out why it feels familiar. But like the buildings were like very European style, like you know.
Yeah.
Like very specific style, and like it looks similar to other places that I've been, but not exactly the same. So they have like their own.
It's like a weird mix because in the center you have like a very European kind of city,
that
but then you
one.
go outside of the city center and it's like very Soviet, of course, like history.
Like those buildings look familiar. Oh, yeah.
I wonder.
That's squares.
Good.
Yeah. But here's the world. Even in the street, it's like you're walking. It's like people are not talking very loud. I'm used to people like I'm not saying shouting is one thing, but like when they're excited, they will like be more emotive, like you know, hands, voice, whatever. Like
Yeah.
And here it's like I always felt like a little bit like I'm being rude, because the moment I'm on the phone, you can hear me. And I'm not doing it on purpose. But on the bus, it was like sacrilegious. It felt really sacrilegious that you actually like answer the phone on the bus, and I'll be like, I'm sorry, I'm on the bus, please. Let's talk a bit later in a couple of minutes, I'll be off.
I absolutely can relate to that. Actually, we both come from a very loud countries, I would say. Like I've been in Israel, and I know Israeli are
Very enthusiastic.
Yeah. And Argentinian people, we tend to be very loud. And for an Argentinian person, in Argentina, I was like a very quiet person, but here I tend to be like a very loud person. And yesterday, we had the Christmas party yesterday, and it wasn't like a party, it was more like a dinner. And I went with another friend, and we went together to this restaurant. And when we arrived to the restaurant, she was telling me that in the bus, it was pretty full. That I was shouting in the bus. And actually, I was trying to be, on purpose, very quiet. And I was being very proud of myself. Because I thought I was quiet, actually. But no, I wasn't. I was very loud.
Yeah, it happens.
Abby is like doing a bit, like, yes, you're very loud. But he's louder than me.
The thing is, unless someone else is pointing out to you, or people are actually staring at you for some reason, like you're not noticing that. And it's like, it's the weirdest thing. Like I would walk, like usually my mother is calling me in the morning when I'm going to the tram to go to work. And I'm on the phone with her, and so I'm speaking like normal. And people are like going like this, and I'm like, fuck, how loud am I?
No, but Polish people, they do stare. Like, you're walking on the streets, maybe you're smiling because, I don't know, you suddenly remembered something nice, and you smile and people stare. Or even if you're like sometimes a little bit different from the normal, I guess, they would stare as well. I think get stared a lot.
For that. To be fair, like I think I got like a mixed like experience in terms of like just walking in the street. So like when I just started, I guess, like I was walking and I see like people are like very into themselves, very like quiet, very, you know, serious, I would say. And then you would go like to places, for example, in art class, or you go to a dance class, and people are super happy, super smiling, super like hello and hi and how are you? Like night and day. I'm like, I have no idea what is happening in the middle. But like I think the younger people here are like more open. I would like they're still keeping to themselves, but they are more open, more smiling, and they're like, cheers, and hi, bye, you know, like the usual.
Nice. Oh, that's nice, actually. I still don't dare to go to classes. She goes to classes, to dancing classes, and I wish I could, but for now I'm still very shy. And actually I don't have time either.
I mean, it's kind of funny because like I came and like everything is in Polish, but I'm like, but if I ask the teacher in English, like suddenly the English appears, and I'm like, okay, I didn't know you have it. Okay, because I don't know why am I assuming that they don't know English, or at least if they know, they will not want to, you know, to communicate in it.
Yeah.
So it's always a nice surprise when I'm hearing the English and I'm like, thank God, yes, at least I can ask questions.
I have this trick, let's say. So if a person seems to be over 45, 50 years old, I try to speak to them in Polish, the little Polish that I can manage because I don't speak it yet. But if I see them, they are kind of young, I would ask in Polish if they speak English. I say my Polish is shit, and then they laugh and we speak English. Most of the times it turns out very well,
Yeah.
fortunately.
Were you ever stopped in the street for directions? Oh, it drove
Oh
me
my
crazy.
God, yes, all the
Drove me
fucking time.
crazy. the few couple of times that people are actually stopping me and asking me in Polish where to go, and I'm like, yeah, okay. So I'm taking the Google map and I'm like, please type like what the direction you're looking for,
Yeah.
and I will just like directly like this.
No, I just go like, przepraszam, nie mówię po polsku, which means, sorry, I don't speak Polish. And they just laugh because it's like, you're telling me in Polish, and this is what I suppose they think. You're telling me in Polish that you don't speak Polish. How? But what they don't know is that I studied like certain phrases so I can communicate on the basics only. And yeah. Good.
Yes.
I don't say that yet. I try not to say that. That's a swear, what Andy just said.
It still is not sounding like a swear word, to be honest.
For me, kurva, it's turn.
Yes, that's what I'm like. They say curve, and I'm thinking, okay, just a curve.
You're not on the same job that you started when you arrived here. How did you manage to get that other job in the job that we actually met at? And how was the paperwork in that case? Did you have to do something else?
They have a thing in Polish law that you're getting your residence card and it's tied to your current job. So if you're switching a job, you need to do it again. You need to, again, to apply for the work permit and for the residence card again. So I knew it only because a friend of mine mentioned that. He's also from Israel. So the first job which I came here was, well, it was better than the previous job. It is in terms of what I was supposed to do, because like what I was working was in collection. So it was mostly emails and mostly like queries from customers. And I would pick up phone maybe twice a week, to be honest, at most. Like, really. And but my only issue was I hated coming to the office. I was not prepared. It was the absolute lack of sun in Poland.
Yeah.
That was like, I think my first year when there was an absence of at least 2 weeks of sun. I will not be exaggerating saying that I was climbing walls like crazy. It was like I did not know what to do with myself. Like, honestly, I would go to anywhere as long as I don't have to stay at home. I would stay in McDonald's until like 12 a.m. just to like because at least like I'll see people.
Yeah.
And like it's a bit of a environment change, but it was the hardest, honestly.
By the way, if you come from a country that actually has plenty of sun,
Be prepared.
Yeah, be prepared. It's tough. For Adri and I, we had like a completely different experience because before coming here, as many of you might know, we were living in Ireland. And in Ireland, it rains quite a lot. So when we came here, actually for us, it was like, oh my God, there's sun. And we came in the middle of winter, the moment where the sun, it's not that much out there, or it's either cloudy or nighttime. Actually, it seems like daylight there, but it's very in the night. And it's like, what time is it?
5.
And it's like almost 6.
Like 4:30
Yeah.
and it's like already dark, and I'm like, okay, I can go to sleep now.
The days are shorter. So yeah, keep going.
Yeah. Okay. So the first job, I hated the office. Honestly, it was becoming intolerable, as well as it was pretty hard for me to manage to finish the month, at least in terms with the salary, because well, the rent was almost half of my salary of what I'm receiving, and then I needed like I had like a minus in a bank to try and close, as well as like trying to save something on the side. So it was a complete mess. And I was just browsing, honestly, like just in case, like if someone is looking for a Hebrew-speaking worker or whatever. And I found one on Facebook by accident, and I'm like, okay, I'll just send my CV, whatever is happening. So they called me, and I had the interview. I made like 2 interviews in 1 week, plus the language assessment, which was really funny for me. It was like someone was just like randomly calling and like, hi, and we just like spoke in Hebrew like for like 10 seconds. He was like, I think you're good. And I'm like, yeah, thank you. And then like on the same week, which that was surprising because I understood in Poland it takes a while to get a reply. But on the same week I got the reply that yes, we would like to hire you. You can start next month. And I'm like, wait, because by Polish law, if I'm quitting, I need to give them the next month of work.
Like notice period.
Yeah. Like if you quit anywhere, for example, if you quit this month, it doesn't matter which date, you still need to give them the whole of January until the last day, which it came as a surprise to me because I'm used to like you're giving either 2 weeks notice or depends if you're working longer, then it might be like 3 weeks or a month or whatever. But this was literally like a full month. It doesn't matter like when you started or whatever. So I was like, okay. So I needed to remind the new employer that first of all, you need to help me with the visa. Second, I need to give the full month, the full next month of work to my current job. And they're like, okay, yes, we'll do it, whatever it is. So they delayed my starting day, I think in a month, but then they started causing issues. Like I didn't like the lawyers. I don't know who they hired. They should hire a different company. But it was like, hi, please provide these documents, which I sent. And then after a week, there was like, hi, I'm the new person who's taking care of your case. Please provide these documents. And I was like, I understand that your employees are not like collaborating with each other because it's basically me sending the documents again a second time. It was like a full 10 files for a new residence card and work permit. And then I got a reply like, hi, yes, we're not sure that you will get your work permit before your start date. So if you will not get your work permit before, we will have to cancel your you're basically being hired. Mm-hmm. So I sent them a very polite email telling them that you told me that you hired me. I quit my job. This is now your problem if you are not prepared.
Fair enough.
So if you can please find me. I was like, this was like pissing me off because they were dragging for at least like 3 weeks at this point. And I was like, after 2 weeks and a half, which you promised me that, yes, you do provide the sponsorship. Yes, you will do everything that is needed legally because otherwise I cannot move. Mm-hmm. And they were like, okay. I was like, okay, so this is technically your problem because you promised me something and you need to come apply. So please just like provide me a later date of start if you think the work permit will not arrive on time. And suddenly it's like, oh yes, we do have a new starter date, so you can start on November. I'm like, thank you for letting me know. So the funny thing is like the moment that they told me that we have a problem with the documents, don't quit yet, I had to like retract my resignation from the company. I was like, is it okay if like I will not quit now and I will let you know when I need to? And they were like, yeah, sure, of course. Thankfully, they were super.
Thank God they were
nice.
Nice.
Thankfully, they were nice because I don't think they could find someone to replace me that quickly. So they were pretty much crashing at this point. Well, the company was weird. So the moment they were like, okay, we have all the documents, you can start on this date, whatever it is, I was like, okay, I'm resigning again. Then I had like I think maybe 5 days of a break before I needed to start the new job. And then it was like, okay, first 3 weeks, because I didn't know anything about the new job. So, you're coming and you're starting to learn. So yeah. I think only the first day I was like really nervous for some reason. Then I'm like, okay, I have like 3 weeks just to get used to all the materials.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then we started and it was fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice, yeah, it's way better. We are in sales. It's way better than customer service. At least in my experience, I enjoy it more. People are not mad. They might get mad because you're calling them, but they are not mad from the very beginning. So just to wrap up the interview, I think it's been like a pretty long, nice interview. I am really enjoying it. I hope you do too. What would be the biggest learning that you had since you started living abroad?
First of all, I would say get your circle. I wouldn't say you don't have to have friends. You need people who you can communicate as like at least like if they're coming from your country or something in a similar situation, get them as fast as possible. I know it sounds weird, but the moment that you have someone to talk to, it removes some pressure of you. So, for example, when I came here, I was like, because I'm Jewish and like I don't know any Israeli here. I was really like, okay, we have a Jewish community. Let me interact with them. Let me at least start to with the holidays, at least to have like some kind of
like interactions.
Not only interactions, but like
community.
I got to know a lot of Israeli who came with their families, but they were they were sent like from their own companies, for example. So it may be a different situation, but in terms of like documentations or anything that I had, like any questions, like I had actually people to ask, which was like I was really thankful for. And so that was the first. The second, of course, is get your own place as fast as possible. Because that was like for me, I already have like fears of not be able to to have a roof over my head. I think that's like the scariest for me.
Yeah, I've been there. It's awful.
It's like you're coming here and like I don't know who to ask. I don't know which website to check. I don't know, So maybe a little bit of a background check before you come. At least like okay, you don't have to go to all the websites that, for example, the tourists are checking. But at least you can ask like, okay, what are the local people are using usually if they're looking for an apartment? So you can just like, you get some recommendations, see which website is easier. Then of course, what your preference if you want through a real estate agent, which is, to be honest, you will pay more, but you will have at least a peace of mind because they're coming prepared with everything. Like they will let you know what you need to prepare, what you need to pay. And it's pretty quick. It's pretty like on the spot. If you want private, of course, it's your decision. I think in general, I would say also a little bit of language. I'm usually, for some reason, I'm waiting to actually come to the country and then be like, okay, so I'll start learning the language. But it's like, I should probably have come prepared a little more than... The thing is, I think if you need to stop listening to people who say it's a tough language.
Yeah.
Because you're coming with the mindset of this is going to be so hard for me to learn.
True.
Don't listen to anyone. Just start learning. That's it. Otherwise,
use every situation in your advantage to practice. Even if it's the most simple one, to order something and you're learning a new language. Doesn't matter if it's Polish, English, or whatever. Spanish, I don't know. Just use every single opportunity to speak the language and you will interiorize it.
Yeah. Honestly, it is easier. I think if you learn it by like sentences, at least like something that you find that you repeat a lot, then it might become easier. I'm currently on a private teacher. He's just, the whole class is literally in Polish. If there's something I don't understand, he will switch to English. But I got used to actually listening to like when he speaks. So I might not catch everything he tells me, but at least with the practice with him, I actually can hear it on the streets when it's like similar words.
Pick up a few words.
Yeah. So it is.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Good.
So it really like depends, but live practice is the best, I think.
Good. Well, thank you, Liliya, for the interview. It was lovely to have you here.
I'm happy as well.
And I'm going to turn back to Spanish. Bueno, muchísimas gracias por quedarse hasta el final de este video. Espero que les haya gustado la entrevista y que el tema de los subtítulos y el inglés no haya sido un problema. Les voy a pedir, por favor, que dejen un comentario, nos cuenten si les gustaría saber algo más sobre el proceso migratorio. No se olviden.
Suscribir.
No se olviden de activar la campanita para que les llegue una notificación de... ¡Basta, chicos! Bueno, chicos, muchas gracias por haberse quedado hasta el final de este video. Les voy a pedir que por favor se suscriban, le pongan me gusta, activen la campanita y dejen un comentario. Díganos qué les pareció la entrevista, si les gustaría saber algo más sobre Liliya. Vamos a estar respondiendo todos los comentarios como hacemos en todos los videos. Y... me olvidé.
Suscríbete.
Suscríbanse. Gracias. Y estén atentos al canal porque van a ver más entrevistas muy interesantes a bastante gente que tampoco tiene pasaporte europeo, pero que han logrado quedarse a vivir acá en Polonia. E incluso en el futuro voy a hacer videos sobre temas similares, pero no en Polonia precisamente, sino en otros países de Europa, sin tener el pasaporte europeo. Así que bueno, muchas gracias por quedarse hasta el final otra vez. Muchas gracias, Liliya, por haber venido a este... No es programa, a este video, al episodio de hoy. Y nos vemos en el próximo video. ¡Chao!